Okay, first of all, we all have our sense of peace. And we know what that feels like when we feel it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't have to define peace in that sense to you because it's a personal experience. It's an affect of what's inside of you. Okay? It is a gift from God. But what happens, you know how sometimes you may have a problem and you say a little affirmation or a prayer and pretty soon the problem seems to go away. But next week it's back. Okay, what happened? You know, how come I got peace at that time and I don't feel that peace now? We're going to talk about how to access that permanent peace. And that's why I entitled this, Walking Over Troubled Waters. I mean, this world is full of it. Jesus says, I didn't give you peace like this world. He gives us peace in a different way so we can navigate the ripples and the troubles of this world. You all agree? Raise your hand. Good. Okay. We're going to start out with some definitions. And we're doing this from the spiritual point of view now. There is a difference the way peace is used in the Old Testament than in the New Testament. And I want to show us our growth on how our spiritual consciousness is growing. And I think mass consciousness is growing, at least I feel we are. In the Old Testament, now some of this information came from the Harper's Bible Dictionary. They have pages and pages on peace, and I read them all. But it talks about the sense of wholeness or well-being, and I think we all agree with that. That peace is a sense of feeling secure, tranquility even. It's both in religious and secular contexts. It is used as a greeting in the Old Testament, a farewell, or it indicates friendly intentions. Peace between nations as opposed to war. But the Old Testament is like the New Testament. It is a gift from God. It doesn't germinate from us. It is already in us to access. When we meet, allow ourselves to access it. It's in God's covenant in the Old Testament in connection mainly with God and the priests or God in Israel as a nation. Ezekiel speaks of peace as being in the future, more in ecclesiastical blessings for coming from the future. Isaiah said that the Messiah will be a Prince of Peace. He's the one that told us that Jesus would bring us peace. Throughout the Old Testament, uses of peace as a material sense of well-being. The priests were always real rich, and that was the sense they were close to God. Okay, and had that sense. And having its source in God, the emphasis tends to be relational. They were in a good relationship with God, so they were rich. That's Old Testament. And if you go through, you're going to see that. New Testament is different. New Testament, the Greek word for peace, normally just simply means the absence of strife, war, or conflict. That's the basic Greek word for peace. The New Testament also broadens it to take on the meaning of the shalom, peace to all. I recognize peace in you. I recognize the Christ in you. That's New Testament. That's Jesus. Do you feel the difference from something that stands away from us, and that the average person had no relationship to this peace that the priests had, or the nation, as a member of a nation, they had in the Old Testament. But Jesus brought that personal sense of worthiness, of love in us, and woke us up that it's in all of us. In all of us. Okay. Generally, the term in the New Testament means absence of strife among individuals and nations, emphasizing people of all beliefs, not just Christians, by the way. Jesus even tells us to love our enemies. And love, I'll say this many times this morning, love is the cornerstone of peace. You can't have peace if you don't have love. Because that starts restricting where peace can go and be expressed through you. New Testament does not associate peace with material prosperity. I already said that. Rather, New Testament emphasizes the connection between peace and spiritual blessings. And spiritual blessings comes in any form. It has nothing to do with how rich you are. It has everything to do with your consciousness and your love for others, or whatever. And the New Testament associates peace with all these things I found it associated with love, most important, love, life, mercy, grace, and joy. Jesus Christ's work was to bring peace to humanity. Some people say that he gave up his life so that chasm between our consciousness and the Christ consciousness could be healed, and it would be there for us. And then he sent the Comforter to help and teach us as we go through life. Now, we've heard this verse already in parts this morning in John 14:27. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. I do not give as the world gives. The things we're talking about in the New Testament is on a different level. It is not things of the world, right? Things of the world might tell us something, might tell us we're a failure, but yet we feel we did the right thing. Have you ever felt that? And you're at peace with what decisions you made. You were right. Okay. And then Jesus says, there's a second part to this verse. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not let them be afraid. Because what happens when your heart gets troubled, and what happens when you get afraid? You close down. We close, I don't mean you. We. I find myself doing the same thing. I'm not talking about and get myself out of it. But it's recognizing if you're closing down, because that inner peace, the love, mercy, life, whatever inner strength, whatever you need to come through, if you're fearful, it closes you down. And that's why I'm so glad he said that. Do not let your hearts be troubled. And don't let them be afraid. Say, be gone. Cancel those thoughts. Cancel those emotions. I'm going to replace them with whatever comes for the moment that you're struggling with. Everybody agree? It's a way you can, sometimes it happens when you least expect it. We have affirmations and we have meditations to also help heal things that are worrying us. But we also can say, cancel those thoughts. And the more you practice that, the more it works. The more it works. Because you have control over your thoughts and your thinking and what's in your mind and heart. Because that's the strongest part of you. It wants to get out. It wants to take away all the fog and darkness. Now, we'll get to the scripture. Okay. And I'm going to read this. This is the shortest one. Where am I here? Oh, that was the wrong one. Hang on a second. There we go. Okay. I'm going to read from Mark 4, starting at verse 35. And Jesus had been preaching on the shore of the Sea of Galilee. He had been doing a lot of parables. And so it was, the day was ending, and they were getting ready to leave. And he said, and here's how it goes. He had been preaching all day. And one of the things it says right before I read the scripture, I always want to give you context, that he always taught in parables and stories, right? Okay, but he explained them later to the disciples. Probably when they were in the boat, I don't know, but whenever. And in this case, he says, on that day, when evening had come, he said to them, let us go across to the other side. This is the Sea of Galilee they're talking about. And leaving the crowd behind, they took him with them in their boat, just as he was. Now, I couldn't find out what that meant. It has to be something cultural, that little phrase. Other boats were with them, so they weren't alone, but he was in with the disciples. A great windstorm arose, and the waves beat into the boat, so that the boat was already being swamped. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him up and said to him, Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? He woke up and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, Peace, be still. Then the wind ceased, and there was a dead calm. And he said to them, Why are you afraid? Have you still no faith? And they were filled with great awe and said to one another, Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him? I like this one because I can identify in so many ways to those disciples at times. We're going to start, the first thing, they go to the boat. A boat is a stable place to be. Okay? It's going to hold you up. The definition symbolizes a positive, sustaining state of consciousness. Get in your boat when you're feeling, when you've got to go and do something. This is before the winds come, okay? Get you in a stable place. In other words, pray or do your morning meditation or whatever. Get yourself prepared for the day. It says, it prevents one from sinking into a negative condition, which in this case is water, and we're going to talk more about water. And it bears up our mental faculties and our fears. Then the great winds come. The stern of the boat, where Jesus, the Christ, is sleeping in us, is the most stable part of the boat. I don't know if anybody else sails, but I used to sail in the dark ages. And it's a stable part of you. And doesn't that make sense? He's asleep in the stern, and he's comfortable on a cushion. I love that part. Stable and comfortable. But the disciples, not only do they wake him up, but they blame him for their problems. As if, how come you're not upset with us, How come this is happening? How many times do we get upset and blame others? And it's not their fault. It's because we got upset at whatever was happening. You agree?
Yes.
Okay. The fear awakens the Christ. And so he immediately, before he talks to them, he calms them. So if you awaken the Christ in you, remember that Christ in you is there to help you, to comfort you. One of the examples I thought of is, we've just gone through Thanksgiving, and I was with my sister up in Indiana, and we had people in the house, and we had to prepare all the food and make sure. The problem is that one of her daughters had surgery to have a tumor removed Wednesday before Thursday, Thanksgiving. So all of us were around her kitchen doing the prep, for the food, and although we had fun, we had a lot of fun, but you never know. You never know. And things get hassled, and, and she was worried to death that it wouldn't go right. We had a beautiful Thanksgiving, but she was worried about her daughter, and the results of the tumor removal. So, but we calmed her down. We made sure that she felt good. But it was like a turmoil for her. I could just feel the stress around her. And so we tried to lighten her load as much as we could. Negativity causes our mind instability, negative thinking, fear of becoming overwhelmed. Remember, God is always good, and God is always with you. Always. We just think we have to do it all. Charles Fillmore says, water also represents the great mass of thoughts that are negative, like we're walking. That's the water, walking across the waves, that's why I said walking over troubled waters. And there's another scripture I want to give you, I've got it somewhere. It's in Matthew that I want you to read and see if you can metaphysically interpret, because water normally represents negative thinking, or negative thoughts, or troubles, if you see. But if water, the seawater, because it's usually not quiet, but when it's quiet, you can see clearly. It's just when there are waves or a lot of turmoil, you can't see clearly, or it's even hard to swim if any of you swim. It's just harder. So, but with lifting your consciousness out of the problems into remembering you've got help, that can be, Charles Fulmer calls it the waters above the firmament. The sea waters are below the firmament. That's our negative thinking. And when we can lift up with the Christ's help. With the Christ's help. Now you can say words that might help a little bit, but for it to really work, invoke the Christ in you. Say an affirmation, words of truth. That will help you be stronger as you're going through your turmoil. Oh gosh, what time is it? Okay, so peace and and love, remember, are always with you. Call on them if your troubled waters appear to be swamping your boat. Okay? You know what I mean in your own world, right? Remember to calm your thoughts. Peace, be still. And take charge of your thinking. For you are co-creators with God. And letting this peace out into your own affairs, it can overflow into the world. And we are co-creating peace as a species in this world. But we first need to do it for us, be able to handle our own feelings and emotions. And although sometimes people, being a chaplain for almost 30 years, a clinical chaplain, people said, oh, you help me so much. And I had no idea what I did, you know. It wasn't my words, whatever they heard. But I just want you to know that there is that Christ constantly working through you, even if you're not aware of it, to make you extra special. That extra special person you were made to be. I have to tell you this story. At Unity Village, that's where the Unity Seminary is, and all the retreats are, and they're big bookstore. They have the most wonderful library that's worldwide acclaimed. At Unity Village, there is this small, long-time chapel that's in an alcove of a bigger chapel, but they've got it partitioned off. So you can be outside. There can be something going on in the bigger chapel, and you can go under this in this alcove and go straight into that little part that's partitioned off. And when you go in there are just maybe 12 chairs. I remember it when I was there as 2 chairs, aisle down the middle, 2 chairs, 2 chairs, 2 chairs. 12 chairs in there. And at the end of the center aisle, it's not very long, at the end of the center aisle, there is a book stand with an open Bible. And on the front wall is a blue mural that looks like water. And on this blue mural is painted with big red letters lined in gold. I've been there several times so I can see it. That says, peace, be still. That's all. And over, there's a little, probably not any bigger than our little window, these windows here, a stained glass window that more towards the afternoon, the light comes in through there, and it turns that whole little chapel golden. And it is the most peaceful. It's open to everybody. Anybody who's on the campus. It could be workmen, it could be staff, it could be ministerial students, even the lowly ministerial students. It could be visitors are welcome to go use that chapel, and it's open. It's the last. It used to be the last one to be locked up at 9, usually around 11 o'clock. Peace, be still. You have a place within you that is peace, be still. You have the ability to bring it forth in the midst of your turmoil. You just have to remember it's there. And do it and bring it through. Don't give up. Keep on, keeping on, because it gets easier. And you catch it before you get so upset about things. many times. And you'll say, peace, be still. Use it as an affirmation. The reference that I'd like for you to, or the story that I'd like for you to read with water in it, is Matthew 14:22. That's when Jesus walked on the water, and Peter tried to walk on the water. That's something that Matthew 14:22, that I just want you to, when you get an opportunity, to read through that and think, what parts did you identify with? What parts do you have questions about? You can always give me a call. I mean, not know the answers, but I can lead you to the right direction. So, but because we each interpreted how we need to hear it. I can say these words, and you're all hearing different things. I've had people come up to me after talks, and I love when you said so-and-so. And I thought, when did I say that? So I'd listen. Back then we had tapes, and cassette tapes. And I never said that. But that's what they heard, and they needed to hear that for some reason. I just trust. I move my legs and my heart and say whatever comes out on these talks on Sunday morning. Some ways when I went in to visit a family that had a loved one that was passing. So, I want you to keep some affirmations. Peace be still is easy to remember. And you'll say, oh, this isn't going to work. You're going to have all these little disciple people in there trying to say, this isn't going to work. Fix it. Fix it. You and Christ can fix it. Okay? Believe in yourself. He said, ye of little faith. Thing is, we've got it. We just got to use it. So don't put yourself through trials and tribulations that you can get yourself out of. Sometimes we're in it before we know it, but the more we practice, it gets easier to recognize that you're going into some kind of a frenzy.
That's true.
Okay. I have just a couple affirmations. I want you to just take a deep breath as we think about this wonderful gift of peace, love, with mercy and life and joy that just is in us, in that still place, this beautiful, that shines with light, that truly is our center. Deep breath and relax. My mind is stayed on thee. My mind is stayed on thee. And I rest in thy peace and power. And I rest in thy peace and power. May my heart and mind be established in the peace of God. And from our beloved Reverend Karen, she has written on Wednesday, she has in the peace, in the Advent booklet, we've got Advent booklets, but on Wednesday, if you want to read her meditation for Wednesday in the Advent booklet, this is her affirmation. I loved it. I am a reservoir of peace. I am a reservoir of peace overflowing into the world. And that's the way this world gets saved. That's the way that we get peace on earth. As first start, and what is it? Let it begin with me. Let it begin with me.